Trudeau
He's
or
the fucking leader. I don't know.
Well, isn't that pretty important? Because if you want to tell me that there was a genocide in Canada, I'd probably believe that. There is probably a genocide in almost every country related to the indigenous populations. And then hopefully the system will begin to reorient itself in order to alleviate the concerns of the indigenous populations. If there wasn't like this explicit intentional genocide occurring, okay, we have a whole bunch of systemic issues. We need to come together. We need to figure out different ways to approach and solve these problems because what we're doing right now isn't working. The way that you would address the problems in each country is wholly different.
Applies to more things than just Jews in World War II. Like, you. Hello.
All right. Why do you think there is currently, right now, today, an ongoing genocide against Indigenous peoples in Canada?
Because it's systemic. It's easy. Like, I know that you as an American, you probably understand systemic racism dealing with Black people, right? In the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
It's way worse statistically and by...
Do you think, is systemic racism a genocide? Hello, hello?
Hello. Am I on again?
Yeah, all right. So, I mean, I understand what systemic racism is, but I think that we can probably both acknowledge that systemic racism is probably a little bit different than genocide, right?
Not if it extends to the point where it's actively pursuing an ethnic cleansing. Do you believe that what Israel is doing to Palestine is a genocide?
That's a way different conversation. Let's keep it centered on like America.
Actually, no, it's very similar. There have been Palestinian journalists that have actually compared it to what is ongoing here in Canada. Okay, so the people who are experiencing this very much feel it is the same. So we can talk about both.
Well,
do you feel
I'm not
Israel...
right now? Yeah. So right now I'm not really interested in what people feel is the same. I guess what I'm more interested in is like, what do you think constitutes a genocide, or what is a genocide to you?
A genocide is anything that promotes an ethnic cleansing. Okay, if you set up in livable situations that will lead to a community of people to no longer exist, that's a genocide.
Okay, isn't the intentionality of that pretty important though?
Why would that be important? If I'm just completely ignoring the fact that I'm pushing someone off a cliff, am I not still pushing them off a cliff?
Do you think that if you... Okay, so then if we were to look at things like birth rates and whatnot, if you were to mess with those in order to like get rid of a certain type of population, would you consider that to be like a type of genocide? Hello? Okay, I think he's disconnecting again. We'll try it one more time when he's... I don't know what's going on. Okay, hello?
Hi, I don't know why this keeps on happening. I'm not doing anything to my phone.
Okay. Oh. Okay, we can try again, but this is probably not going to work. But we'll try until it disconnects again. Okay, so...
Okay.
Do you think that if yeah, go ahead.
Intentionality doesn't matter. Can we agree on that?
Absolutely not. I think intentionality is central to it being a genocide. I think it's probably the most important thing.
Why? If you're acting in a way that's going to cause an entire like ethnic group of people to no longer exist, that's genocide.
Okay, would you consider...
Whether you intend to or not.
Okay, so would you say that in the United States a white genocide is happening right now?
No, because it's not setting up conditions in which they will no longer exist.
Well, it kind of is. Maybe
just
not.
Because they are becoming a minority does not mean they are like being wiped off the fucking planet.
Okay, but like, what if we left some? What if there were some indigenous peoples left over? Not all of them are wiped out. Just they dramatically decrease their percentage of a population.
Okay, well that's already happened, but no, it's the fact that the living conditions are so that they cannot live is the problem.
Okay, so so in your head, a genocide is just when you've set up conditions so that certain people can't live?
That's not in my head. That's the actual definition of genocide.
Well,
like
no, to be clear, the actual definition of genocide
includes... with the Holocaust,
okay? No, so the actual...
The Holocaust wasn't... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Fuck.
I'm just saying that the actual definition of genocide includes intent. That's part of the actual definition of genocide. Or do you contest that, or?
Contest that. I think setting up the conditions in which a genocide is occurring, it doesn't need intent, okay? How can you actually claim intent upon a government except for the actual leaders? But we're talking about an ongoing systemic colonization that has led to this, okay? So this is the intent of many of people. And even currently, it's not just that like the guy picked up the reins, but it doesn't matter whether or not he knows, where it's been going.
Okay,
It doesn't
so
matter his intent.
Article 2 in the UN, in defining genocide, on the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, says that in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So the intent is pretty important, and we can infer intent based on the actions of a particular government, of course.
Okay, so then if we can infer intent, then what does it matter? I mean, just because
I said we can
Trudeau,
infer intent. Of course we can.
how can you claim whether or not, okay, Trudeau has been given like a list of things he could be doing in order to stop this, and he has barely done any of them. So can that be regarded as his intent?
It depends on not stopping something is the same as intentionally doing something. Those are two different things, right? A negative versus a positive action or whatever.
Okay, but if you have been made aware that if you don't do this thing, this genocide is going to happen, and you don't do the thing, then isn't that intent?
Well, I don't even know right now what is the genocide. Like, what is happening right now that's genociding Indigenous people in Canada?
You have to look at the report, okay? Indigenous people make up over 50% of the prison population, though they are 5% of the actual population. Don't you think that's a little bit alarming?
It could be. It could also be that they live in poor socioeconomic conditions and have a higher likelihood to commit crime, like African Americans.
Okay, yeah, they absolutely do live in poor economic situations. Okay, that's systemic. Okay,
yeah, living in poor situations and then committing a lot of crimes and being sentenced to jail because of that, even if it isn't evidence of systemic racism, none of this gets you anywhere near genocide.
The missing and murdered. Okay, they are dying at a rate that exceeds anything. Like, no, it's your definition of genocide versus your definition of a Holocaust. And by the way, Holocaust is an actual word you can apply to things. It doesn't just mean the one incident.
Do you think that black people in the United States are being genocided right now?
No, because they aren't seeing this at this rate.
What do you mean at this rate? Black people in the United States are incarcerated at higher rates. They live in worse socioeconomic conditions. They have a higher propensity to die of preventable disease. They have worse access to health care. They engage in abortion, or you might say sterilization or whatever, at higher rates than white people. Like,
there is a difference because Indigenous people live on communities. They have reservations, a lot of which don't even have drinking water. Okay, so they have been isolated.
Okay, and black people have lived in ghettos with houses that have been, painted with lead paint, and live in places like Flint, Michigan, where the water pipes are contaminated. I mean,
okay, what's the age gap for life expectancy of a black person in the U.S. versus a white person? Just what's the age gap in life expectancy?
In the United States, white Americans live on average 78.6 years. African Americans live 75 years, so it's about a 4-year age gap.
Left again.
What? Oh, fuck. All right. I don't think this is gonna work. Okay, hello? Oh. Hello?
Fuck.
Big Pepe
Okay,
energy
so
right now.
if you're using mobile Discord, I don't know why, but like sometimes every 3 minutes it'll disconnect you. This is why I never use mobile Discord when I call people. I have to call them on Facebook or something because it's super shit. I don't know why it does that, but okay. So yeah, so it's about a 4-year difference in life expectancy between white and black.
Okay, it's 11 years here in Canada. So doesn't that amount to a little bit more severe situation?
Yeah, it sounds more like a severe situation, but still not a genocide.
Why is it not though?
Because genocide requires some intentional action by a large organization or body or whatever to, I mean, we can go through any of the UN things for trying to eliminate or destroy.
Okay, well, let's just look at the government of Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, let's consider that a body. Has it not intentionally done so?
In the past, for sure, it seems to be the case, yeah. But ongoing right now, I don't think so, no.
I feel like
It's part of the same thing, though. It's been an ongoing thing. It has never ended.
Do you guys still have like the indigenous schools and everything? Is that an ongoing thing? I thought that policy was largely
Instead of indigenous schools, it's become the foster care system. You can look up the stats on how many indigenous people are in the foster care system.
Wait, so should kids just not be sent to foster care? What's the alternative here?
Look up millennial scoop. The alternative is to find ways to keep them with indigenous people. Part of a genocide is taking the youth from them.
So I'm just trying to understand. So you're telling me that there are indigenous people that are capable and willing to look after indigenous children, but the government won't let them? They just take them from their kids and don't let them, or take them?
Yes, that's currently happening. Yes.
And this is happening on so if I were to look for evidence of this happening, this isn't going to be like 1 or 2 reported cases. This is going to be like a de facto policy of the Canadian government.
This is like something that's fucking frightening. Okay,
can you tell me real quick, what can I look up to find information about this?
Google the millennial scoop. It actually has its own name. It used to be called the 60s scoop when it happened back then. It's currently happening.
Okay, when you say the 60s scoop, that makes it sound like it happened in the 60s. No.
Well, that was one of the earlier ones. It's happening again. Do you understand ongoing? Do you understand current today?
Hold on one sec. I'm just reading. So, just reading this. Dylan Cohen was taken into care in his early teens along with his twin sister. Their first foster home was 45 minutes away from their community in Winnipeg. He said that while placement with well-meaning families is great on paper, it leaves children very far away from what they know and what they will need to survive once they exit care. They were eventually separated and moved from home to home. My social workers would always speak about high caseloads and the limited number of foster homes. Is this like an intentional effort by the Canadian government to destroy Indigenous families, or is this just like the foster care system sucks and they don't have the resources they need to do the job well?
It's the same thing that they're doing with the residential schools. I don't know how you call it any different.
I don't know as much about the residential schools, I'm going to be totally honest. My understanding with the residential schools was that those were literally like set up by, I want to say, the Catholics, and they were literally done to re-educate and destroy the culture of the indigenous peoples. That was my understanding for the residential schools. But my understanding is that those don't exist, that isn't a thing anymore, that Canada recognizes that those were horrible, and that's a far cry from the foster system.
Well, we have Singh. He's one of our party leaders. He has openly stated that this is happening with the foster care system. It's gone from one thing to another. It's still the same thing, though. The result is the same.
Yeah, I mean, like the foster care thing sounds pretty shitty, but this...
It's beyond shitty. It's beyond anything you see happening with your country, okay?
I don't see the intention of the Canadian government to destroy Indigenous peoples with the foster care system. It seems more like it's underfunded and needs more money or resources.
Their intention the entire way has been to destroy Indigenous people. They have never adjusted that intention. So you don't need Trudeau coming off like some Trump saying, I'm out to get these people. It is happening. It never stopped happening. What don't you understand about that? Like, what do you need? You need a dictator to be calling out for the death of these people? It's happening anyways.
What you need is you need to establish somehow the intent of the government to destroy a specific group of people, right? That's what that's what a genocide is.
They were given a report with a list of things that they need to do in order to prevent this from happening. They have done none of them.
And have they not done any of them because they want to destroy Indigenous people, or have they not done any of them because figuring out exactly what needs to be done is difficult and is a politically contentious process?
No, the if you look at the report, it has point by point things,
Mm-hmm.
recommendations, stuff you need to do, and the report also calls it a genocide, which Trudeau has actually accepted. He's said multiple times, "I accept the findings," and has even used the word "ongoing genocide." Like
Yeah,
it's
I don't care
happening.
about what Trudeau. It doesn't make. I don't care about what
Well,
Trudeau
he's
or
the
the
fucking
commission.
leader. You want intent, right? Well, the leader says it's happening. Like, I don't understand.
The leader of a country saying that they are intentionally genociding somebody and wanting to stop is literally the exact opposite of intent. So what Trudeau's statement doesn't make sense. I don't care what some Canadian fucking committee found. The UN hasn't declared it a genocide. I don't care what a Canadian committee that was looking at Indigenous people said it was a genocide. That's cool if they want to use the word, but it's away from what our actual understanding of what a genocide is.
So you believe rhetoric trumps actions. Okay, so just as long as I'm stabbing you, I can be like I'm not stabbing you, and
So
that's cool.
the
Like
problem.
it's totally not me killing you because I said I'm not killing you, right?
Okay, so the problem that I have is that if we start calling things a genocide when they're not, then we start looking at places to fix the problem in ways that aren't going to fix the problem because the problem isn't what we think it is. So when you
The problem
say,
is what we think it is. It's setting up a situation which is going to lead to the ethnic cleansing. It's exactly what Israel is doing to Palestine.
okay,
The only
no,
difference, the reason why you aren't able to join the two is just because Israel drops bombs sometimes. They're outwardly hostile, but the conditions are still the same. The stealing of the land, the second class treating people as second class citizens. It's all exactly the same.
I don't think it's exactly the same at all. I think that the government in Israel, like, very much is trying to actively. I don't want to compare the Israel Palestine thing. It's way because that situation is way more complicated. When I look at what's going on in Canada,
In what regard? Like, what's the difference though? Except for occasional active hostilities,
the
what's the
difference
difference?
is the geopolitical balance of that region is way different than just indigenous peoples in Canada. There's a lot more parties involved in Middle Eastern politics than Canada and its indigenous populations.
Okay, well, the stealing of land, the lack of health care, the over policing, and then under policing when it comes to actually helping these people, it's all there. The lack of education. Like, what do you want to go to
Well, the
exactly?
problem is that, like, everything that you're saying sounds like problems that we have in the United States as well concerning certain populations. The thing
Yeah, but
is,
it's
the
not even
thing,
close
hold
to
on,
as
it's not
severe.
about how severe it is. It's about why these things are happening. So
It absolutely
it
does
it
matter
it
how
it
severe it is
it it,
because one will lead to a cultural
it
genocide
doesn't matter.
or ethnic, and one will not.
It
Do you
doesn't
see the
it
difference?
doesn't matter. What's important is to figure out why are these problems happening so that we can fix these problems. If you go in wielding the word genocide, then what you're looking for are people who are intentionally trying to destroy a group of people. And if you can't find them, you're going to invent them. But if you go in instead and you look at things as though these are systemic problems, we've got a whole intersectional issue related to class and race and where people live and these treaty agreements and everything, then I think that that type of view is going to let you see a lot more problems and then consequentially let you fix a lot more problems. But if you go in with the genocide word, you're looking for evil actors that you're not going to find and that you're going to have to invent, and then you're going to spend your whole time fighting ghosts that don't exist instead of helping people that need help.
Don't need to invent or find ghosts. Canada is guilty of this.
But Canada doesn't have policies on the book with the intention of destroying Indigenous peoples. That's not happening. What it sounds like is happening is that there's not the funding needed for a foster care system that's capable of handling people from Indigenous tribes. It sounds like they don't have the money to set up foster homes that are close to these areas, or they can't find the funding to hire people to work out in those areas, or they don't have the money necessary to train people to be more sensitive to those. That's what it sounds like. But I mean, when the president himself, when Trudeau or Prime Minister himself is saying, like, hey, this is a big problem, we need to fix it, it's really hard for me to believe that that's a genocide. It sounds more like a bunch of systemic issues that need systemic solutions.
It is a bunch of systemic issues. It still constitutes a genocide. Like
So
that's
do
what
you
everyone.
Do you
Everyone
believe?
has found.
So do you think that systemic racism is systemic racism, but then when it gets bad enough, it turns into genocide? Is that what you think? Like genocide is on a sliding scale, all the way on the left is systemic racism, and all the way on the right is the Holocaust?
Yeah, there can be systemic racism, which still allows people to exist. And then there can be systemic racism that is not allowing people to continue. Do you understand?
Do you think that what Canada does, I understand what you're saying, I just completely don't agree. Do you think that like the Uyghurs in China face similar levels of quote unquote genocidal intent or genocide as the indigenous populations in Canada?
I'm not overly like knowledgeable on that topic, but yeah, genocides do all tend to sound very much the same.
Well, so the
Okay.
difference I would argue is that in one case, the government itself is perpetuating these crimes with the stated goal of removing and changing an entire population in an area. They don't acknowledge what they're doing is a crime or bad. And they're using like a whole bunch of different tactics, whether it's like sterilization or mass migration of people or abduction of kids. Like they're engaging in
Well, we
all of
have
these things.
sterilization being committed to the indigenous people.
Is sterilization right now today an active policy in Canada for Indigenous peoples, or has it happened a couple times in hospitals and people have complained? Because there's a difference
It's
between those two things. You understand, right?
Yeah, it's happened. I can't go ahead and say it's a policy.
Okay, so yeah, so lots of bad things have happened, but that doesn't make it a genocide.
Still, but when Canada's intention all the way along has been to forcibly harm this community of people, and they continue to do so, you place a lot on rhetoric for
No, I'm
some
not
reason.
talking about rhetoric at all right now. We're not talking about rhetoric. We're talking about what a genocide is. And a genocide requires the intent to destroy an entire group of people. And it doesn't feel like that intent exists in Canada. There might be some
Okay,
byproducts of some bad systems that have some systemic outcomes that are unfavorable towards Indigenous peoples. That wouldn't surprise me at all. It happens with people in the United States. But a genocide that does not make.
no, based on the way you're choosing to view this, okay, Israel isn't committing genocide to Palestine. Just as long as they don't openly break out into war, they can have these the second class citizenship. They can continue to steal land.
The
They can
Israel
continue.
Palestine thing is way different because you're talking about disputed territory that is being like contested by
Oh, are we
multiple
not talking
parties.
about disputed territory in Canada?
Right now, we're not. No, right now that's not relevant to what we're talking about. We're talking about Indigenous people's treatments within Canada.
Okay, well, it's very bizarre that you have these two different definitions based on
I don't have two different
where
definitions at all.
you absolutely do.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, the reason why Israel is committing genocide to Palestine is because they set up the conditions in which they can no longer exist. That's period. And the same thing is here in Canada.
Do you think that in World War II, when the United States was at war with like Japan and we were bombing them, were we committing a genocide against Japan?
You not really.
Okay.
That's not gonna wipe all the species off the planet. If you continued to bomb them needlessly, as you did, then that would be a genocide.
Okay. Well, you just said as you did. So then, do you think that the United States committed a genocide against Japan?
No, I said you needlessly bombed them as you did. It was needless, is what I was trying to emphasize there.
So you say we needlessly bombed Japan, right?
Yeah,
But it's not a genocide because there's still going to be some Japanese left over?
because it's not actively headed for the result of an ethnic cleansing. Okay, if you aren't putting into place systems that isn't headed for the result of these people no longer existing, then it's not a genocide. Okay, so bombing them is not a genocide if that's all you're doing.
So do you think that Canada right now is trying to get rid of every single Indigenous person? They're trying to delete that entire ethnic group, that entire population from existing?
Yeah, it has been going on since the start of Canada, and it continues to this day, and nothing has changed. And you just believe just because Trudeau's like, I'm trying to stop it, guys, it's not happening.
So if I were to look up the population of Indigenous peoples in Canada over the past 20 years, has it grown or shrunk?
You're pulling an Eris here. There is actually a lot of birth rate, but the life expectancy is way down, and the life expectancy gap is growing. So what does that tell you?
I'm not talking about birth rate, and I'm not talking about life expectancy gap. I'm talking about the number of people that... Wait, have you argued with Eris before?
No, it's just she made this bizarre claim that what Israel is doing to Palestine is not a genocide because look at the birth rate was her whole thing.
Okay. Well, so in Canada, we can't find the intention of the government. There's no intent to genocide the people. And it seems like by your own admission, the population is growing. So how is
I
this?
don't I don't know that the population is growing. I know that the birth rates are up, but the life expectancy, the age gap in the life expectancy is growing. So that means more are being born but dying younger. What does that look like to you?
It could be a lot of things. It doesn't immediately strike me as a genocide, though.
Fine, look up the overall population. I don't know if it's growing or not. We'll find this out together.
Fuck. Okay, I'm not even sure I would look these numbers up at. Does anybody have the Indigenous population number of people that exist in Canada? I see on Wikipedia it says in 2016 it was 1.67 million people. I don't know how to find the earlier numbers for that.
I mean, does it matter if it's succeeding or not, though? Like, the idea is that these things are in place in order to bring about like an ethnic
Yeah,
cleansing.
but I don't
Doesn't
see
matter
any of
if it's
that. I don't
successful.
like white people's life expectancy is falling in the United States. I don't know if that constitutes a genocide. It's just a weird thing to me. So
We're talking about an 11-year life expectancy age gap over the next.
sure, there's like a
um
15-year age gap, I think, between like white people and Asians in the United States. I think Asian people on average live like 86 or whatever. I don't think that just pointing to like these things is enough.
no, we're talking about the next biggest community age gap. So it would probably be black people. I haven't looked into it, but 11 years difference over the next one.
Okay,
So we're talking about people.
I linked you a population thing. If this is a genocide, man, Canada is doing a really bad job at it. Holy shit. There are more than 600 unique First Nation/Indian bands in Canada. The First Nation populations include those who are members of the First Nation/Indian band and those who are not. The number of First Nations people with registered or treaty Indian status rose by 30.8% from 2006 to 2016. Among the live in reserve, while the rest of the population lived off reserve, there was growth for both on reserve, 12.8% population growth, and off reserve, 49.1% population growth, First Nations population from 2006 to 2016. I linked you the Canadian report, I guess, on this or whatever. Technically, none of these things actually even make my argument. Just because the population is growing doesn't mean there's not a genocide. But I don't think we have any evidence or reasons to believe why there is a genocide. I would need to see like some intentionality behind some policies in the Canadian government that was trying to like delete these people. Are you still here? Fuck. Oh, okay, he's here.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah.
I think when you sent me that thing, it booted me again for a second, or something happened. I don't know
Oh,
what's
okay.
going on with this.
So here's the thing. In 2017, the life expectancy for the total Canadian population is projected to be 79 years for men and 83 years for women. Among the Aboriginal population, the Inuit had the lowest projected life expectancy of 64 years for men and 73 years for women. The Métis and First Nations populations have similar life expectancies with 73 to 74 years for men and 78 to 80 years for women. So it seems like different First Nations or different indigenous peoples are different in Canada. This has to do with lifestyles or where they live or how it's Métis.
Well, no, there's treaty, and Métis is mixed race people. I'm Métis.
Okay.
So you're looking at it, it's more just fuck, the government called us urban indigenous versus, I guess, non-urban indigenous, which would be the people on the reservation. So there is going to be a huge difference between that.
Okay, so what am I supposed to? So I mean, the life expectancy is projected to grow. It seems like it's been growing. I don't know the populations have grown on reservation and off reservation. The Canadian government recognizes past crimes of the Canadian government against Indigenous peoples. Like none of it doesn't sound like an ongoing genocide to me.
The Canadian government recognizes ongoing genocide, though. So I don't
But I
even
don't
know why
see
this
where it
is a
is.
question.
But there is none right now. There are some systemic problems relating to Indigenous peoples, but there is not an ongoing genocide.
Again, just you need, for some reason, you need a dictator screaming death to
You don't need a
all, or
dictator. It's according to the UN. You need intent. That's what a genocide is. It's important, though. We need to know if there's an intentionality. Because if the Canadian government was committing a genocide, then the only way really for it to stop is through basically like a violent revolution of the people, a complete ousting of your entire current government, or foreign intervention to make it stop. But that
yeah, foreign intervention.
but that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like the Canadian government itself recognizes that there's a problem, and they're taking steps to try to alleviate those problems. But
No, the Canadian government recognizes that there's a genocide, and they've barely lifted a finger towards it. Again, it's all just rhetoric. We're gonna vote out Trudeau. Hopefully, we'll get in sync. Hopefully, someone will do something about this. But to say that just because Trudeau's like, oh, gee, gosh, guys, that it's not happening.
so you don't. So are you telling me that the Canadian government hasn't taken any steps whatsoever to help Indigenous peoples in Canada, or they've just taken insufficient steps to help them enough, or what is the?
They've taken insufficient steps. When China called out Trudeau recently, like literally within the past couple of days, Trudeau went on TV and he listed all the things he's done for Indigenous people. I think he listed where he managed to get clean drinking water to over 100 reservations or something like that. That was the one that stood out to me. But yeah, no, it's insufficient to actually stopping the genocide that he admits is happening, by the way.
Can I see Trudeau? Does Trudeau actually say that there's an ongoing genocide? I'm curious if he actually has said that.
One sec.
Because somebody says Trudeau does not use the word genocide. It's one woman from an investigation that used the word, and the official articles from the investigation do not use that word.
I got an article here that says Trudeau says death and disappearances of Indigenous women, girls amount to genocide. Yeah, no, he dances around the word as much as he can, but he has admitted to it. Like the thing is that he can't deny it. I mean, that would be death to him. Don't you think that if it wasn't happening, he'd just be like, you know what, there is no genocide here. I'm Destiny. I've looked.
Well, rhetorically, that probably would sound bad, so probably he wouldn't say that.
Well, of course he's not going to deny the genocide, but he would if he could. And I linked you an article. Like apparently he said it.
I have acknowledged that I accept the findings of the report, and the issue that we have is that people are getting wrapped up in debates over a very important and powerful term. As I've said, we accept the findings that this was genocide, and we'll move forward to end this ongoing national tragedy. Okay. I guess I could say that's close enough to him calling it a genocide. I still don't think that we've really seen anything that amounts to genocide. Not ongoing, at least, but
Because you think there needs to be intentionality, but
well, no, because
negligence
because
is
there needs to be intentionality. That's the whole point of what a genocide is. That is what a genocide is intentional. Yes.
yeah, but negligence is
No,
intentional.
negligence is not enough. No. That's why people debate over the Holodomor so much, over whether or not that was a genocide. And that whole debate boils down to, were the Soviets explicitly trying to bring about like the destruction of an entire population of Ukraine during the Holodomor? That's like what the whole debate is centered around. Or was it just a bad famine and they were negligent and they fucked up?
Well, I don't know about that.
You don't know about what?
Well, that historical point you brought up. But I understand what you're saying.
What part don't you disagree? Or what? That's probably the clearest analogy to this, way more than like Palestine and Israel, right?
Well, I'm just not familiar with it at all. I'll have to look into it.
Sure. So for the Holodomor, some people claim that there was a famine that existed in Ukraine, that Stalin and the Soviets hated Ukrainians, that they stole all their food, they killed people trying to leave the country, they let them eat themselves, and the goal was to like basically destroy that entire population. Other people say that famines have been a history of the Eastern world for a long time. Famines occurred plenty. There was a famine that happened, and that food was taken because they needed to keep their country alive, and there was just the byproduct of that was a whole bunch of people died. But that's
Okay,
like,
was food denied a community and
yeah, it was
specifically
taken by the Soviets. Yes, the army came in and they requisitioned the food from Kazakhstan
okay,
and
well
from Ukraine.
that's a genocide when you're specifically taking resources from one community knowing that you are leaving them for dead. That's a genocide.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but you're using a personal definition that's not recognized in the international community. Because just negligence is not that's just not what a genocide is.
Okay, well everyone who has looked into this has called it a genocide. Like
I don't
people
know
who
if
actually
that's true. I
study it.
really don't care what left-leaning governments look into it or commissions put together to try to sound as good as possible, or whatever. Like, there is an international definition of genocide. Like, I understand what a genocide is. If people want to redefine it, they can. I think that would be really sad, because then the word essentially becomes meaningless, and almost every country around the world could theoretically be committing ongoing genocides constantly. Um, I
Well,
just
there are many there in Australia. There's a genocide being committed against the Aboriginal people. You look at Aboriginal people anywhere, and there's genocide being committed against them. I mean, the fact that it's widespread should be alarming, not, I don't know, make you callous.
well, no, because then it just changes into using your definition, black people in the United States are being genocided by the U.S. government.
But they aren't being
They
genocided
are.
though. There is systemic racism. They
Mm-hmm.
are suffering, but it's not set up in a way as to lead to the ethnic cleansing of
It could
those
be.
people.
People argue in the black community that the access to abortions is a form of black genocide. It's literally a form of population control. Other people argue that black fathers being taken from families and put into jail is a form of subjugating and destroying the black family. Other people argue that the unfairness in the criminal justice system perpetuates that cycle. Other people argue that the communities that black people are forced to live in causes mental and physiological harm to them, whether it's lead paint or whether it's lead in pipes like in Flint, Michigan. People make these arguments all day long. I would say that all of this seems like it would easily qualify for being a genocide against black people. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it's very similar. Like I agree with you, it's very similar. The difference is the result. Like, what are we headed towards? What are we seeing?
Okay. I understand what you're saying. It's just not. That's just not what genocide is. But I mean, I understand if you want to use your personal definition for it, that's fine. But you
It's
have to
not my
understand
personal
that.
definition. Again, everyone who studies genocide comes away with the exact same thing. You can call them lefties because you're full of shit. I mean, to just announce anyone who has a different opinion from you as a lefty, liberal, just saying shit for their friends, like what the fuck is that, man?
We're literally arguing about the definition of a word. I'm not going to disagree that bad things are happening to Indigenous people in Canada.
Okay, well,
I'm not,
can you just agree that people with authority in this issue, people with intelligence, people with education in this issue, all come away saying it's a genocide.
why
So
hasn't the UN
why do
declared it a
you have a
genocide? Why
different
isn't the
opinion?
international community? Why hasn't the UN declared it a genocide then?
There is international watchdogs that are looking
No, why
into
not
it. I was looking
international
at one
watchdogs or
today.
some NGO? Why isn't the UN declared it a genocide if it is one?
I don't know, why doesn't the UN go after the USA for all their war crimes? Constant, every single president to this day, war crimes.
So
Like what?
well, real quick, real
How
quick.
is that any
I just want to
standard?
point out just for you, I guess, and for people listening. So when Canada's when a commission in Canada says the word genocide, you instantaneously believe that, and it's correct. However, when the UN doesn't come after the US for genocide, well, now there's a conspiracy. Now there's a larger thing going on for why they won't do it. Why do you accept the findings of one commission and reject the findings of another? Is it just because of who you
Because
like and don't like? You
it's
accuse me of
not
being
it's not
biased, but I
one.
mean,
No, it's not one commission though. Like that's where you're slanting this. Like you're obscuring it.
okay, so
It's not one commission.
the UN are the people that like contain the articles on what is considered a genocide. So if I'm looking for what a genocide is, I feel like the UN would be the body I would look for, not some local investigation in some country.
I could hit you all day with people who have looked into this and come away calling it a genocide. There's just no other way to describe it. Okay? So just because the UN hasn't acknowledged it,
Do you think so? Is this the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada? Is that what we're talking about?
the Truth and Reconciliation of Canada or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they were put together after the inquiry. Okay, so that's Canada going, okay, well, we're going to put this together to try and fix things. That's
Okay,
what you're looking at.
gotcha. And did they say there is an ongoing genocide or there was a genocide?
I don't know.
Well, isn't that pretty important? Because if you want to tell me that there was a genocide in Canada, I'd probably believe that. There was probably a genocide in almost every country related to the indigenous populations because they did actually want to destroy or remove an entire group of people and there was intentionality behind there. I would agree with that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, don't you think that's different than the black population in the US?
Well, no, because we didn't want to genocide them because we used them as slaves.
Exactly. No, that's what I'm saying is the difference. Okay, the difference is in the intention that you're so
Well, yeah.
into
So in the intention in the
to wipe
past,
these
they
people
wanted
off
to
the
destroy.
planet.
Yeah, in the intention of the past, to wipe the planet. I don't think that's the intention of the Canadian government now. It doesn't seem to align with any of their policies, and it doesn't seem to align with the direction of the government or the recognition of the 600 plus First Nations people or anything else.
Well, when you read the list of things that they could be doing in order to stop this, you can see that it absolutely is intentional. Like it just is. There are things they could be doing that are easy to fix that they just aren't doing. And just because we're in the modern age where you can't outright admit that you're wiping out your indigenous population doesn't mean that it's not still happening.
Okay,
I mean, it's
where?
happening everywhere.
Can you just tell me what is this list of things?
I don't know. You'd have to look at the actual report. I was looking at it last night, but I can find it.
Okay, hold on, let me look. I don't expect you to like have it offhand or anything, so let me check. Does anybody have a link of the of like the list of recommendations or whatever?
Here, I got a PDF.
Is it this 46-page one? Oh, these are the 94 actions required by the commission. So this was published in 2018.
Why don't we just look at the actual report where it's discussing genocide and why they found it?
If you
I
want
linked
to,
it
sure.
in chat.
Who are you in chat? Oh, I see it. Okay, what page do you want me to go to here?
Jeez, I don't know. I just brought it up. Yeah, it seems from what I see in the contents, the whole thing would be kind of.
Okay, so I'm reading just through this. This is a 46-page thing. So on page 7, the Canadian definition relies partly on the international definition found in the Genocide Convention and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, two international treaties to which Canada is a party. However, the domestic statute explicitly adds one important element to the definition of genocide: omissions. That is, the failure to act can constitute genocidal conduct. So then this is just a personal definition that Canada uses. I don't really care that much about it. And I think it's pretty silly to have your own personal definition of genocide.
So again, it comes down to whether or not like negligence or failure to act or allowing a genocide to occur is culpability.
Sure, but this is a Canadian definition. I don't care about the Canadian definition, especially if they say right in this that it differs from the international definition.
Okay, so something that's happening in Canada, labeled by the Canadians, like, just bizarre.
It's not bizarre at all. Let's say that internationally, let's say that some country decides that if you lock somebody in jail and you play Britney Spears music, that's a war crime. Let's say that some individual country decides that. Does that make it a war crime? Well, no, that just means that individual country sees it as a war crime. If Canada has their own individual definition that they want to use for genocide, I don't know why, but if they want to do that, they can do that. But then I'm an American. You can't get upset at me for not recognizing Canada's personal definition of genocide.
All right, so it comes down to intentionality. Like,
I would say so.
Back
Yeah.
at this. So take that away. Are the conditions not exactly the same as a genocide would be? Just
well, no, a genocide.
Short,
I think the genocide would have a government that is actively, maybe covertly, attempting to eliminate an entire population for some reason. But so if that was the case, okay, so this is where this is the problem that I have, and I don't really care that much about the words or the definitions, but here's the problem that I have, okay? Let's say that I was given two different countries. Let's say that in one of those countries, somebody told me that a population was being genocided, and then in another country, somebody told me that there was a bunch of systemic conditions leading to the erasure of a group of people. In the first country, I would need to do one thing first, is I need to find out, are all the people there genocidal? Does the public support the genocide of a population? If that wasn't the case, well, now I need to find out which aspects of the government are covertly involved in this. There needs to be investigations. There needs to be prosecutions, maybe war crime trials or something, if it's an internationally defined genocide, right? We need to find those people. We need to make them accountable, bring them to justice, and then hopefully the system will begin to reorient itself in order to alleviate the concerns of the indigenous populations. That would be the goal. But in the second country, if there wasn't this explicit intentional genocide occurring, well, then it's just, okay, we have a whole bunch of systemic issues. We need to come together. We need to figure out different ways to approach and solve these problems because what we're doing right now isn't working. The way that you would address the problems in each country is wholly different. And this is why I don't like using a word like genocide to define what could just be bad systemic problems, because now you're going to have people looking.
It's just because you need a bad guy.
Well, for genocide,
that's really all it comes down to. Cartoonishly, you need a bad guy. The results
no.
in both
You need a bad guy. I don't need a bad guy. If you're using the word, and maybe, if I'm being ultra charitable, maybe you personally don't. Maybe you have spent so much time watching political streams like me. We all have huge brains, and we can say, maybe there is a genocide with no bad guy. That might be the case. There might be people that have that. But I think that the vast majority of people, when they hear genocide, you must agree that when you hear genocide, the first thing you think of is Hitler. And the second thing you think of is who's the Hitler now.
That was
right?
a genocide, but that was also a Holocaust. You understand? Well, there's a difference.
I don't know. My understanding is that the Holocaust was a genocide. I don't think a Holocaust is a general word. I think it refers to the genocide of European Jews.
It's a general word. You can use it to describe when a population of people are wiped out all at once. Okay.
Well, but in that case, then the Holocaust.
It's a genocide.
Wait. But then the Holocaust wasn't a Holocaust then, because all the Jews weren't wiped out. So that doesn't even make sense.
It was an ethnic cleansing. Okay, it doesn't matter that there's Jews on the other side of the planet or anywhere else. It is an ethnic cleansing of that area, which
Okay,
makes it a genocide. But the fact that it was done with
I'm gonna assert. Okay, so I will assert you on. I'll assert one thing, but when people say the Holocaust, they are referring to World War II. I'm curious. What do you think is the difference between a Holocaust and a genocide?
it's just that a Holocaust is something that's done like extremely quickly. Like when people are wiped out en masse all at once, that's
What
a
does
Holocaust.
quickly or at once mean? What does that even mean? Because there have been plenty of massacres that have occurred like within the span of a year that are just called genocides. They aren't called holocausts.
Yeah, look up the definition Holocaust. But I'm
Well,
telling
I
you, it
did look at
doesn't
the definition.
apply.
It says the Holocaust, also known as the show, is the genocide of European Jews during World War II.
One sec.
People have used Holocaust prior to that to describe other things, but I think the
Oh, so
Holocaust.
they were using the word prior to it. That's so weird because I thought it was invented for that.
I never said it was invented for that. I'm just saying that today, when somebody refers to the Holocaust,
Who cares about what stupid people think today?
okay, so when we communicate with each other, it's important that we have words that all of us kind of like mutually understand what they mean, because part of language is like communicating concepts and ideas to another person, right? When I talk to you, the only reason I utter anything is because I want to create an idea in your mind based on a word that I say. If we can't agree on what words mean, then communication
I
breaks down to various
understand how
points.
language works, but if I refer to something as a Holocaust, it doesn't mean that I'm just referring to what happened in World War II just because that's what automatically blinks into your brain. Okay.
Sure, I don't know what I don't know what the difference is then between like a Holocaust and a genocide. I don't know what the difference is.
It's just that a Holocaust would be something that's carried out much more quickly, whereas a genocide can be slow and systemic.
But that no one uses that definition. The Holocaust wasn't even carried out quickly. It was like years. So even the Holocaust doesn't fit your Holocaust definition. No.
Yeah, but there's a difference between like 4 years and 100.
Well, I don't. I'm not trying to push you on a particular line because I think it's unfair to do that. But like generally speaking, what's the difference between like how many years until a Holocaust turns into a genocide? Like if
The
you're
Holocaust was a genocide because it was an ethnic cleansing targeting a specific group. Here, definition one: noun, destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war. There you go. Definition number fucking one has nothing to do with World War II. Like, what the fuck is your problem, man?
so when if I'm having like a political or like a scientific conversation, I don't usually go to the dictionary for the definitions of these words or how
Oh,
they're
I don't
used.
usually go to the dictionary to understand what words actually mean.
Well, we're not
Like, what
talking
the
about
fuck, man?
we're not talking about what one word means. We're talking about like a concept behind a word. Dictionaries are really good for definitions, but I would like look to like Wikipedia if we're talking about
Nah,
concepts.
fuck you, man. You were douching me around with that shit until I actually looked it up. And the number one definition means that it applies to more things than just Jews in World War II. Like, fuck you. And
Okay. So if we go by your definition, or I say the dictionary definition of destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, wouldn't every single genocide be a Holocaust then?
it depends.
Not on
Okay?
this
Like,
definition. Hold on. I'm not going to let you try to bring in more. If you're going to scream at me and throw the dictionary definition, your only answer to this is yes. You have to bite the bullet on this, or you have to admit that you just went on a huge tangent for no reason. So using this definition,
because you can apply a Holocaust in ways that, okay,
a
if a country
destruction
rounds up
or
all
slaughter
its
on a
entire
mass. Okay, can you give me one
hold on, if
definition? Can you give me one definition of a genocide that doesn't have destruction or slaughter on a mass scale?
the genocide in Canada.
So that is a Holocaust and a genocide, because that's
No,
slaughter.
that is a genocide. It doesn't constitute a Holocaust.
There's not destruction of indigenous people on a mass scale.
Yeah, it's not all at once.
Nothing in this dictionary says all at once. I'm not finding that. Can you link me a definition that says all at once? It sounds like something you're just throwing in there. I don't understand the point in having this distinguishing thing between Holocaust and genocide. Like, I'm pretty sure in the Rwandan genocide, people were killed there faster than they were killed in some years than they were in the Holocaust. I don't know if that makes that a Holocaust. This is just like a really weird.
It's just because the terms. Okay, if a country gathers up its entire homosexual population and wipes them all out, can you call that a genocide?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, you can't. Okay, and
Wait,
actually,
what do you mean?
I've
No,
looked
you can't.
I've looked into it. You can't. It's because genocides are only recognized if they include some kind of like ethnic cleansing. You can Google
Oh,
it. I've
sure.
looked into
That's correct.
it.
You're right, because the UN
Yeah,
definition
okay,
doesn't.
but you can call it a Holocaust, right? So there is a difference between these two terms.
Didn't you say Holocaust also meant ethnic cleansing?
A Holocaust can be an ethnic cleansing, so a Holocaust can include genocide, but it doesn't necessarily need to.
Why? Also, I noticed that we're very much heavily leaning on the UN definition now of Holocaust too, or I'm sorry, of genocide as well. But
Well, in my opinion, what some countries are doing to their homosexual population does constitute a genocide, and I would like to declare it a genocide. Yeah. You seem to feel comfortable with that, so I think we should go ahead and just call it a genocide when countries do that.
yeah, if you were targeting people based on sexual orientation, it's not part of the UN definition. I'd be okay amending it and adding that. I don't know when the last time the definition of genocide was changed.
So that's weird. You're willing to go. You're willing to go past this definition for other
No.
reasons.
I think the intentionality part is important. I just think that more groups should be included under the definition. So the groups right now are national, ethnical, racial, or religious groups. I think that adding like sexual orientation groups is probably okay as well. But I think the intentionality part is still important.
So again, it's just you need a bad guy, even though the results are the same. Like going back to your
I don't
analogy
need a
with the two
bad guy.
country.
I don't need a bad guy for any of this. I'm not looking
Going
for a
back to your
bad guy.
analogy with the two countries, the results is still an ethnic cleansing in both of those. It doesn't matter whether one's openly doing it or one's covertly doing it.
But it does matter, because the intentionality means that your solutions are going to be way different for both countries. That's why the intentionality part is relevant. You have to look at that. But
What? No, I really don't see the difference in the solutions. I mean, one would be just you have to overtake like a government, right?
okay, well, let's say that you've got two people at work. Let's say that one guy underpays his black employee because he thinks that, like, he's heard a lot that black people are kind of lazy. He's not sure. He doesn't have any black friends. Like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to pay this guy a little bit less than my other white employees. Let's say that there's another working environment where a boss underpays his black employee because he thinks that black people are literally a different species. They're subhuman. They don't count as normal people. He's not going to pay that guy a full wage. Do you think that if you were trying to convince both of these people to pay their black employees a fair wage, do you think that the conversation would be the same?
No, but I think the solution would be.
What would the solution be?
Well, obviously, you make it illegal to pay them differently.
Sure, but let's say you were trying to get both people to change their minds on it. Like you're
But that's the thing is you don't need to change people's minds on this. You need to enforce things.
No,
you need
absolutely not.
change.
You have to change people's minds. That's where the legislation comes from. That's where your government gets its power from. It's from the population.
The majority of Canadians believe that this is a genocide, so that's already been won.
Okay. I hope that you guys don't waste all this time trying to find like guilty parties of a genocide instead of just like fixing the actual problems that are occurring. But
well, obviously the intent, no one's looking for guilty parties. We all know that it's Canada. Canada is the guilty party. They started something, they're finishing it.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else you want to chat about?
No, it's fine.
All right. Well, hey, have fun. Stay safe, buddy. Okay.
Yeah, bye.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed. Next lefty I talk to, I'm going hard on, okay? Because that just used up all my patience for the fucking week, okay? So don't cry when I talk to the next lefty and I just fly off the handle, okay? Because I need, I need to recover